right, all right. So, fellas, next subject is Mrs. Sharon Osbourne and the whole debacle with Cheryl Underwood on their show, The Talk. Um, this is kind of like a follow-up to the Meghan Markle discussion we had because it's about that Meghan Markle interview. And the specific question that we're going to be discussing is, was Sharon Osbourne's breakdown legitimate or an example of a white privilege temper tantrum? So just to make sure that we're all on the same page here about what portion of this we're talking about specifically, we're talking about the fact that Sharon Osbourne supported some comments made by a friend of hers, Piers Morgan, who specifically said this about the Meghan Markle interview. He said, "Who did you go to? What did they say to you? I don't believe a word she said, Meghan Markle. I wouldn't believe a weather report if she read it." So at some point on one of the shows, Sharon Osbourne defended that. Her and Cheryl Underwood got into it, just so you all have the overall understanding of what we're talking about specifically. So again, the question is, was Sharon Osbourne's breakdown legitimate? Okay, because basically she was being called a racist because she supported Piers Morgan, who people were called a racist, and she had a breakdown on the show and everything else. Or was it a white privilege temper tantrum? I'm going to go ahead and throw that to you, E-Man.
So Sharon Osbourne. So she's the lady who's married to, seems like Ozzy, you know. And when I this reminds me of something that happened years ago with her. I think I'm not too sure, but I want to get this right. I know she used to do The View, I believe, but and I think she also had a same issue that came up, something close to this. But I think it was something that she said versus as agreeing on someone's notion. But none of this is shocking and none of this is surprising. But towards whatever tantrum she had, that was basically, her just basically trying to fall into, it's the guilt, of like, things that they can't come back from. And what I mean by that is basically that you said something or something you said, and then you have a lot of people around you that don't agree with it. So you basically crying or some type of, lower emotion, you know, to make you feel like what you did was wrong. She said what she wanted to say, and that's not going to change anything. She agreed what she wants to agree on. So that's not going to change anything. But towards the many people on the panel with her, probably didn't agree with it. And that's what happened the first time in her first incident, you know, that almost cost her her job. So none of this is shocking. None of this is surprising. And I think for me, I don't care less about Sharon. To me, I don't think she's a bad person. I don't know her, but, physically, it's not hurting me. Mentally, it's not hurting me. But psychologically, is she going to take responsibility, you know, towards what she agrees on, or just have these tantrums or like walk away, say negative things, and not own up to what you're saying, you know? Because to me, I feel like this is a whole thing going back to accountability because she's not being accountable what she's agreeing on. She's trying to cop out and hide from what she agrees on. Towards like Piers Morgan, I don't care about him and whatnot. And many people will always label people towards who they are. And that's not going to change. So it's just like the same shit that we talked about last week. And I'm gonna just end my notion on this. Now, I remember calling Oprah a hole and Megan a mongoose. Now, I feel like this situation is just basically, like it's like another silly fight, and basically, like Sharon's basically running away from it. So, just by answering the question, does her privilege per se helps her out? Well, of course, because at the end of the day, did anything change? No. Did she? Does she even need to like go out there and like put herself out there again? She probably doesn't need to, because basically that tantrum basically just said basically I can say whatever I want. I can agree who the fuck I want to, and nothing's not going to change. So yeah, and that's how I'm going to leave it as that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Understood, sir. So, Mr. PAT, let's say you, sir.
All right, let me just say this. I don't give a shit about Sharon Osbourne or what's that show? That was it, The View or
The talk.
Okay, The Talk. See,
I thought it was The View. That
I
they
don't.
called The
Yeah,
Talk
And
now?
I think it's the talk this happened on. I think the View is another, the one with Whoopi Goldberg and stuff. I
okay,
think.
okay,
Yeah, but she
I
was
don't-
also on
right.
that show also too.
Oh, I
Yeah,
don't
see,
know.
I get those two shows mixed
Me
up.
too.
That
I
Me
don't
too.
watch either.
That just shows how much I give a shit about those shows also. But so I'll say this. Sharon Osbourne's breakdown was not legitimate. If we're going to answer the question of was Sharon Osbourne's breakdown legitimate or a white privileged temper tantrum, it was a white privileged temper tantrum. The thing is, her boy Piers Morgan got called out on his racism. The video clip that we watched said Cheryl Underwood challenged Sharon's defense of Piers Morgan. The thing is, if you align yourself with a racist, then you might be taken to task about that. Some people might pull up and ask, why are you friends with a racist? It's that simple. If you're saying or you're putting out a type of energy that says, oh, I'm not a racist, but you hang out with a racist, then guess what? People gonna pull up and they're gonna ask you, why are you hanging out with this person, or why are you defending this person? It's really that simple.
I agree.
Sharon Osbourne's white fragility came to the surface. She was basically on some how dare this black woman challenge me type shit. Basically,
No, she was thinking that in her head though. I can know that.
yeah, basically how dare this black woman challenge a white woman type shit. Unfortunately, this is the behavior of, as Neely Fuller calls people like her, suspected white supremacists. And it's the behavior of outright racists. When a black person challenges them, they get real indignant, they get real self-righteous, and they get real condescending. And the part that really makes that clear to me is the part where Sharon said to Cheryl, and don't try and cry, because if anyone should be crying, it should be me. So that clearly showed me that Sharon Osbourne was letting Cheryl Underwood know where she stands in the racial pecking order. First of all, who are you to tell someone that they shouldn't cry? Who are you? Like, why?
When it's the very thing you're doing.
Right. It's like, who the fuck are you to tell somebody that they shouldn't cry, but then say, oh, no, I'm the one that should cry.
There you go.
Who the fuck are you? So, I mean, as we all know, crying is a human emotion. It just boggles me. It just really boggles my mind how someone could tell someone not to cry and then say that they should be the one crying. Sharon Osbourne talked to Cheryl Underwood in that way because she understands the society that we live in and how whiteness trumps blackness. Sharon understands her power and privilege as a white woman. Society props them up. They can be the damsel in distress. She knows that society would rather see the white woman cry instead of the black woman cry. So Sharon Osbourne used that to her advantage, and she took on a victim role, although she wasn't even a victim. But see, that's what the Karens of the world do. They cry and expect the world to cater to their needs. It doesn't matter who else is truly a victim or who has been disadvantaged. Once they call 911 or the manager, they expect their cries to be catered to at the expense of others. And just as a sidebar, Kevin Frazier, he was out of pocket for calling on Black women to educate Sharon Osbourne. And actually, Amanda Seales addressed him. Amanda Seales addressed Kevin Frazier for that on her Instagram page. Now, I understand his intentions, but at this point, Black people, Black men and Black women do not need to educate any white person on racism. The white people who are racist need to go educate themselves. Straight up. That's how I feel. They go educate themselves. We don't need to be educating anybody. That shouldn't be our responsibility. So I just think we really have to stop with the kumbaya nonsense. Real talk. We just need to stop with it.
I definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting what you just said about that guy saying something to educate, Sharon Osbourne on on the Black woman itself. But I feel like that's another cop out again,
Mm-hmm.
It's always about, and this is why I'm trying to keep very strong with my words and make sure they're very clear and concise. It's crazy how he had the right, and basically, towards we have the right to say what you want to say, towards the freedom of expression. But just in the sense of you saying that to tell him, you need another Black woman to educate you. I'm like, education's everywhere. So you should be taking upon yourself to educate for yourself.
Yeah, educate your damn self. Really,
but here comes the thing. They feel like, they don't want to do it, but we have to do it for them. And this is the same construct I talk about with people who are on a daily basis. Is like, the reason why there's so much friction is because we don't want to have these conversations respectfully. You guys want to, I wouldn't say be disrespectful, but you want to start a conversation, agree with something, but don't talk about why you agree on it, because now someone disagrees with something you say, and then you lose your motherfucking mind. And that's why I don't like dealing with people like Sharon, because she's done this twice and it's going to keep going on again, and she's going to keep hiding from her own truth. Because
the reality of it is, these people don't want to have the truthful conversations, because the truthful conversations are going to force them to evaluate themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
At the end of the day, when you have to have a truthful conversation like this one, when you have to have a conversation like, look at yourself, look at the person you're defending, and really take a second to think, maybe I'm defending this person because those are my views as well. And when you have to face that as a human being, again, boils down to accountability. That pulls you out of your comfort zone. People don't like to leave their comfort zone.
You need to get out your damn comfort zone.
And that's the problem.
Right.
That's the problem. Yeah. And so my issue with this whole thing, and first of all, let me specifically answer the question. Was Sharon Osbourne's breakdown legitimate or a white privilege temper tantrum? I'm actually going to say it was both, and I'm going to elaborate on what I mean. It was a legitimate white temper tantrum, because in her mind, she honestly does not believe she's racist for supporting a racist. She's saying to herself, I'm on a show with black co-hosts. Shit, I have black friends. I have 2 or 3 black friends with, let me put a little note out there. If you know how many fucking black friends you have, don't ask yourself whether or not you're racist, okay? So, but anyway, she's probably saying to herself, I have black friends. I'm on a show with black co-hosts. How can I be racist? It just because I supported someone who made racist comments. Yeah, because admitting that you're a racist, it pulls you out of your comfort zone, which that's what a lot of white people don't want to do. Like, that's the reality of it. I'm going to be supportive of the black community to a certain extent. I'm going to be supportive of the black community or this cause or that cause as long as it doesn't disrupt my comfortability. And that's the problem here. Cheryl Underwood called her out on the fact that she supported someone who made those comments about a black woman sharing the fact that she felt suicidal, that she cannot comfortably say he would have made those same comments about a white woman sharing her suicidal thoughts. And that's the problem here. I mean, you all know how I feel about the Meghan Markle interview, where I said, yes, I believed her, but I thought she took the safe route. I believed her, but I felt like she had a duty to share more than she did for the care and love she was asking for, right? She was asking for the world to see her struggle, to understand her struggle, but wasn't necessarily sharing with us some important aspects to help us meet that connection.
Right.
However,
she's a mongoose. That's what she is.
However, not once did I say or completely disregard her feelings, her suicidal feelings, or the things that she commented on. Because who is anyone to do that to that woman? Whether she was white, black, Spanish, or etc., being a part of the monarchy alone is stressful. Mm-hmm. And so to disregard her statement in general, yeah, that's to me, that was extremely ridiculous and outrageous on Piers Morgan's part. And anybody who supported that is an asshole. I'm sorry, she was an asshole for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the temper tantrum and the breakdown that she had was another example of her being an asshole, and not understanding this white privilege that allows Piers Morgan to say something like that and claim he just doesn't like Meghan Markle. That's complete bullshit. It doesn't matter whether you like her or not. You don't dismiss someone's suicidal thoughts, bro. That's complete bullshit. Doesn't matter if they're black, white, Spanish, or otherwise. So for you to say it the way you did, especially after you watched the interview and etc., and then you went on a talk show to say it, that shows consciousness. That shows you knew that you were going to be offensive and you just didn't give a fuck, which is a form of the white privilege that the both of them had.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he knew.
I mean, of course they know, and they definitely know, and they're not gonna change their behavior, because in their minds they don't have to change their behavior. That's and just by everyone listening, I just want y'all, so I'm gonna repeat it again. What I mean by that, they don't want to change their behavior. Like, Piers Morgan probably is worth millions. Like, you know, he knows he can say whatever he wants and not much is going to change towards what goes on in his life. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel like Sharon, she's on this, talk show, maybe because, I know she don't need a job. So we all know that. But, no one's not going to change. You can't change your behavior unless you change your environment. And many of these people chooses not to change their environment. So it's all about changing your environment, all right? Because if you look at the word behavior, be and have, be means yourself. So anything you do, is based upon your environment. Till you change your environment, then you can become a better person, because your environment is your surrounding. And Sharon's not going to change that. Mm-hmm. And is she hurting me at the end of the day? No, she's hurting more of herself. She has to look herself in the mirror every day and deal with that pain and that struggle. but she chooses not to because she prefers coexisting just because that gets her by every day, you know? And what I mean by coexisting, you know, that I can come to work, but I can work with a black woman. Because we're coming to work every single day, she feels like, you know, me and Cheryl are friends and whatnot because we come to work every day and we do our job. But here comes the thing. Many people go to work. Many people have coworkers they hate. Many people go to work, they hate their own bosses, you know? But do you consider as somebody that, as you know, as a acquaintance or friend? Probably not, you know? It's just you coexisting to make sure, like, you know, I got this I gotta do. I got bills to pay. I'm not worried about them, you know? This is what's getting us not to move or elevate to the next thing. That is the huge issue. But this whole sharing thing is going to be another rose. It's this we got this revolving door and whatnot. Because when I tell people I do not believe in racism, but I believe in discrimination, because you always pick and choose what you choose to hate and dislike. And your environment's going to help you become better so that you'll know that you'll know who you are as a person, you know, because Sharon knows who she is as a person, you know, and the whole cop out thing that I hate towards, you know, you got black friends like that's you stating something that you know you don't have anything because you don't have to state something that you already have, you know, because if I own, like an example, if I go home and I pay mortgage on a house, you know that you own a house and whatnot, you know. Huh? It's up to you if you want to share, you know, about what's, you know, how big my house is, but you know where you're at, you know. You don't have to tell people where you're at, you know.
Well, let me just make something clear, especially because of your
Mhm.
statement. You don't believe in racism. So
That's an interesting statement.
that's an
All right,
interesting
so
statement.
I'm gonna tell you.
And I
I'm gonna
just
tell you the
want to,
reason why. I'm gonna tell you the reason why.
well, hold on really quickly. I just
Mhm.
want to say that, because I know we're on the subject of Sharon Osbourne. This could take a a little detour here.
Yeah.
So just again, I want to throw out there that, our statements on any subject are individual, not representative as the group as a whole. That's for any one of us on
Mhm.
any subject that we're discussing. And it is never our intent to um, offend anyone. This is a forum for us to share our opinions on these matters. Okay, just want to throw that out there to our audience. Go ahead, sir.
All right. So when you look at the origins of the word racism, it comes from the word race. All right. So a race is a contest. All right. The reason why I don't believe, because they have us in this illusion that we're all running this same race, you know, and this race, you know, and when you look, and I've coached track. So if you look at a track, it is circular. All right. It has no continue. I mean, it has no end unless you put an end to it, you know. That means you're starting somewhere. You can keep running around that circle for hours until you choose to stop, you know. Dr. Claude Anderson and his book, I believe his book shares a lot more of this about him. But what I've learned from him in seeing that they put us into illusion to divide us and hate each other, you know, not for reasons that doesn't mean anything, but they're creating problems and situations based upon us hating each other. So an example basically be like, and I'll use something very simple. All right. Um, I'll use basically let's see. I'll use like Cheryl Underwood and whatnot, you know? Now, Cheryl spoke up because she knows, Piers Morgan is basically he don't like black people. You know what I'm saying? I know that, because he hates them. You know, because he knows what he is and he know who he's are, and he's not going to change that. Just like how everyone said how Ellen disrespected everyone, towards who was working for her. and whatnot. You know, discrimination comes from hate, because you can build hate and you can tell people, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that. Because discrimination is based upon a culture. Like, you can bring it down from a culture, a thing, a place, you name it, you know? Because, you know, Piers Morgan's not running a race. But the situation I'm trying to get is that we're trying to use a word that we're not using in the right context. And that's the easiest way I can explain it. But when we talk about hate, it all comes from discrimination. Because you can break down more and more things, you know, around the circle. Because so just to get everyone towards what I said, so hopefully that's a better picture towards what I'm saying. Because I tell everyone I'm using the word in the correct context, not in the context that I would say that we were taught, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So that's why I'm always choosing my words correctly so everyone can get what I'm truly understanding.
No, so I get what you mean. I think this is a case where it's going to boil down to what definition of the word you accept.
Right.
Because some people accept racism as having the ability to oppress a certain group of people based on their race, right? And I think, and then there's, of course, other definitions of the word racism. I think this is a case where it's not a right or wrong, but it's going to be per understanding or per belief of what the word racism means, right? And because I think it's important to note that there is, for some folks, even a difference between regular racism and systemic racism, right? And that could be generalized as all the same thing, and it's different. Some people feel like people who are racist, like, you know, people who don't have any major impact are just generally racist, like this next topic that we're about to be on with this guy in Oklahoma, versus systemic racism, where you have like people in positions of power specifically taking actions to oppress certain races of folks.
Yeah.
And so I think it depends on the individual perspective of the word racism. I know this is not one of our official subjects to discuss today, but I just wanted to say that. And Pat, I think you wanted to say something as well.
Yeah, just a brief, you know, just to cap it off, because I know we got to get to the next subject. So, I mean, the racism term, that's probably an episode in and of itself.
Agreed. Agreed.
So just to briefly touch on that, racism is systemic racism and racism, all one thing. It's based in power and privilege. And nowadays, myself, including others, are starting to have adopted the view that racism is synonymous with white supremacy. So, and I already unpacked, you know, what white supremacy racism is on the Meghan Markle segment. So I don't need to really go further into that. But that's how I view racism. But you know, just going back to educating white people, at the end of the day, that's not what we're here for. That's not what Black people are here for. There doesn't need to be any summits, any meetings. There doesn't need to be any of that. We're not here to hold hands and sing "We Are the World." And it's crazy. It's crazy because this also reminds me of an article that was written by somebody named Jonathan Capehart, basically saying something along the lines of Black people not needing reparations, but an apology instead. He said, I bet you an apology is what African Americans want most. That is absolute bullshit.
Right.
Now, the reason I brought that up, because of course I'm not going to go too deep into that. People could look that article up if they want. But the reason I brought that up is because stuff like that won't stop racism. All it does is fuel the fire. nothing actually gets fixed. So what I want to say is these kumbaya Negroes need to stop with the bullshit. Real talk, stop with the bullshit. We're not here for the kumbayas. The Sharon Osbournes of the world don't need Black people putting on a cape and coming to rescue her from her white privilege. White people like her would need to do the work on their own. It's that simple. They need to do the work on their own. We're not here to save people, period. Because the Sharon Osbournes of the world, the Piers Morgans, or whichever other racist that's out there, they know better.
Exactly.
Even if we might, if some people might not think they do, these people know better.
Mm-hmm.
And you know the saying, if you knew better, you do better.
Exactly.
So these people just need to do better. Straight up, do better. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
No, great points. And I'm sorry, what were you saying, man?
No, just something really quick to touch on. I get it with the whole reparation thing, but many people don't know that, you know, people got reparations for the Holocaust and they still talk about that, and even towards Native Americans. But I just want to put that information out there.
Right. But, no, exactly. And not just that,
Black people need
also
reparations.
Exactly. No, but also even Asian Americans after the internment camps that they had during the World War II situation, you know, after that situation occurred and they put Asian Americans in internment camps and etc., there were reparations for that too. The Black community is the only group that hasn't received reparations yet. No one should be speaking on behalf of everyone in any situation. And to really quickly touch on Pat's point, I absolutely agree. This notion that someone needs to educate people on racism is bullshit. This is 2021. This is the information era. Okay, there's information everywhere and at the palm of anyone's hand with easy touch. It is not my responsibility to make grown ass people aware of racism. They already are. They're choosing to ignore it because, again, it pulls them out of their comfort zone. Human beings need and love comfort zones, and when some of them have to step out of it, they reject whatever's on the outside of that box. Well, that's fine. That's your decision, but take some accountability for your actions, and don't be surprised if I punch you in your fucking face if you call me a nigga. It's that simple.
Oh no!
Right. You think
I might have to like do the whole like.
And because of our friendship, that means, you know, you're going to you think that that's going to allow you certain things, and I'm going to relate that back because, again, that's people making conscious decisions and then being surprised by reactions. And you stepped out of your comfort zone and etc. to learn about this. So now you think that gives you a certain privilege and you want to play innocent to certain shit. You're going to face the consequences like everyone else is. Do all of it. Be both things. Step out of your comfort zone because it's the right thing to do, but be respectful about it because it's the right thing to do. That's my point. So I think you both made great points. I think we need to probably table this for a whole separate session.
I feel like we need to do that as a whole 1 hour session. Yeah, that's what I think.
This subject is definitely worthy of its own attention. So I say let's mark this down definitely to discuss at a later time.